Sheila Singh, your podcast host, and I'd like to welcome you to the My Brand HQ podcast, all things personal branding for career acceleration. This podcast is for talented, ambitious career professionals like you who are wanting to be perceived as a thought leader, to be top of mind to those that matter, and to make an impact and stand out, be that in your team, your organization, or your industry, and to be inspired by other successful leaders. I will be interviewing high-achieving career professionals who have carved out a successful career in their field and are open to sharing their career journey, their challenges, their learnings and insights with you, someone who is looking to establish your personal brand and accelerate your career. Through my personal branding and coaching practice, I enable career professionals primarily in the technology industry to earn more money, to increase their salary. In fact, I spoke to all of my past clients that I've worked with over several years and learned that actually overall, they've received an average of 47% increase in their package. Would that be a great place to be? They've also all achieved at least one, if not more, promotions or moved on to a higher level in their career at another organization. And they're looking to advance their career while showing up as the best version of themselves. If this sounds like you, then do reach out to me and let's have a chat. And why do I do this? Well, during my corporate career spanning 25 years, I quickly realized that hard work alone was not enough to get me to where I wanted to be and the success that I strive for. And my belief is that hard work, coupled with creating and establishing a strong personal brand, can both influence and accelerate your career and get you to where you want to be. In today's episode of My Brand HQ, I'm speaking with Veronica Riccio. Veronica is the head of mentoring at the Fortune 500 travel tech company, Expedia Group. She has created her current role following her passion to build employees' engagement through the power of mentorship. Veronica is a skilled relationship builder who founded the successful employee-based mentoring program with the aim to build equality and unlock employees' potential. The mentoring program she has created is focused on breaking cross-functional barriers and designing worldwide initiatives that enable individuals at all levels in the organization to both build knowledge and become stronger leaders. In today's episode, Veronica shares with us her passion project, so creating her ideal role, connecting the dots and making it happen. She also shares the benefits of having a mentor, the value of mentoring to the business and its people, creating a mentoring culture in the workplace, and her approach to choosing the ideal leader to work for. So let's head over and hear what Veronica has to say. The opinions expressed in this podcast are Veronica's own and not necessarily those of her past or current employers. Veronica, hi there. Good morning and welcome to My Brand HQ. How are you doing today?
Hi, Leila. I'm doing fantastically. Thank you for asking. It's a bit chilly in London, so
it is
approaching the winter. I mean, we're in winter.
We are indeed, sadly. So I'd like to kick off with my first question for you today, which is I want you to share your career journey with me in terms of becoming head of global mentoring at Expedia. So talk a little bit about that, because it's an interesting journey.
It is, yes. It's as I like to say, I basically invented my own job, which is really cool. And I feel like everyone who has a passion should be able to do this and work in an organization where they can create their role or passion role or future in a way. So yeah, so I started working as a head of global mentoring way before I got this job. So it indeed started as a passion project about 2 years ago. And so it started from pretty much whiteboarding my ideas with my mentor. So it is something that was new to me. We were trying to understand how my skills could be applied to anything else but the job I was doing. So at the time, I used to be a partnership manager for the data side of the business. So my job was indeed to build relationships between the analytics team, but I wasn't doing any program management or any mentoring work at all. So I wasn't working in HR pretty much. So what we were trying to understand is, by the moment I had this passion to connect people, and I had like great relationship building skills, and I had a keen understanding of people in general, how could we make that valuable for Expedia? So we started from there, and spent some time connecting the dots really with my mentor. So she was asking me a lot of interesting questions like, okay, so first of all, if you would like to call this role with a name, what name would you give it? And that's where head of mentoring came up. And of course, we dug a little bit more into that. And the head of mentoring is really something that came from the understanding that employees had a lot of resources available to get training or to listen to a speaker coming and talking at Expedia. So they had a lot of like boosts of inspiration and frameworks on how to build your goal, to understand your goals and go towards what you want to achieve. But there was just so little around how they could take an action and how they could tailor make it to their journey a little bit better. So this is all. These are all the things that me and my mentor started writing down, and then from there it just became an incredible journey of trying to make it happen one way or another. From talking to the right people to understanding which leader does what and how can I. And Expedia is a massive company; it's a global company, so it is not as easy perhaps to go and find the right person who would work or somehow be an expert in a field where you want to create something. So mentoring wasn't a thing. We didn't have a mentoring program back then. We had our people department just like every other company, but it took like a lot of research in understanding like where the gap was and how you could pitch an idea like that to a company that has never done it before.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting things there in what you've just shared. I mean, so first of all, identifying your passion. Let's break this down a little bit. How did that come about?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a firm believer in mentorship, not only because I do it for work, but also because it really helped me get to where I am today, just like all the mentees in the world would tell you. For me, I still remember my first mentor when I was at school. So I had this person, her name is Loredana, and she was my teacher back then. And I remember I was just at my classes regularly. I wasn't any of a special student with like superpowers and super smart. I was just a student. And I remember her having taking an interest in me pretty much, and asking me questions around, hey, we have this student event coming up, do you feel like presenting? So it was kind of like she was giving me more opportunities, let's say, to show who I am and to show what's great about me and what skills do I have, and kind of like do a bit of self-discovering by trying things, which was an interesting thing for a student, for an introverted student especially. So again, I wasn't the first one raising my hand for pretty much anything. So I like doing my classes and just, being there without necessarily having to be picked on in any way, if possible. Yeah. Trying to be not invisible, but kinda like staying down, like flying down kind of thing. And so she was the first one that took an interest in me. And from there, I really understood that I could ask for things, for example. So I remember thinking, when she asked me, what would you like to do? Do you want to go and study at university, or what would you like to do? And back then, I remember just saying, no, I just want to go to London and then figure my way out from there. And it sounded amazing. It sounded crazy to me. Like my parents were absolutely not. You're not going to London. Eventually, I did go to London, and I've been there ever since. But the thing is that person asked me a question that allowed me to think outside of what was normal to me and to my family. And that's what made the difference. The thing is that it works similarly to counseling. Sometimes you find yourself asking or to coaching. So you find yourself asking questions or providing answers to things that you don't normally talk about that way. So there is this safe space where you're like, yeah, I can say that I want to go to London and leave everything behind me and start a brand new life. And then you realize how important that is to you, and you do it.
And I like the point you made there as well about the questions, the conversation, because obviously as a coach myself and having had a number of coaches, sometimes you can come and think, well, that's just really obvious, right? But the point is, it's common sense, a lot of this, but actually it's a very different experience when you've got that space created, that safe space that's trusting, where you can be very open, but you can also be challenged. And by being asked those questions, because how often do we really actually stop and ask ourselves those questions? Often we don't. So having someone who is sat in front of you who will ask you that, will just make you think about something or look at it in a different way. And I don't know what it is about coaching, mentoring. It's like it just activates something else in the brain to have you think, oh, that's where you get your light bulb moments. And yeah, it's very, very powerful stuff. So when it came to creating the role, and I know you talked a bit at the start there about how that came about. So what I picked up there is you kind of brainstormed ideas of what you wanted it to look like, what it could be called. And I think what's really important to take away from that is the fact that you spoke about it. Because an observation I've made, and you know, from conversations I've had, is that oftentimes we make assumptions. So we make assumptions that, well, they know that we want to move up to the next level. They know that we want to go from, you know, an analyst to a senior analyst or whatever it is in the company. Why are we not being considered? Or, you know, a slightly different role comes up, maybe in a different team. And well, that's obvious that that's where I wanted to go next. But the question is, how often do you voice that and make it known? And that's something I learned very early on in my career. I was actually told point blank that you're going to struggle to move up in your career because people don't know who you are, because I was very quiet. I was very kind of shy at the time, but also they don't know what you want. They don't know what you're about or what value you bring. And my big takeaway from that is you have to talk about it. You have to make yourself known, and you have to let people know what you want. And it's not necessarily by just stating, I want this, but actually just talking like you did. You talked about it, your passion shone through, people recognize that. And that's how this evolved to where you are now.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that's a really big takeaway here. It's important to make yourself known, share your passion, and talk about what you love to do, what you want to do, so that then it opens people's eyes to that when the time is right.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm for me, being a bit of a quiet kid, it was always, it's something that I had in my blood to prove what my point is, rather than to just scream and shout about it. So when I had to, when I was, after I ended my meeting with my mentor, the next step that I've taken was to take the difficult road, which was stepping on stage. So what we've done is that we sent out a calendar invite to the whole of London office, and we just told them, hey, we're doing a presentation for an hour, and it's going to be around mentorship. Veronica will be presenting. Here is some free lunch, which always helps. But what I've done was stepping on stage and telling people why that was important. And that is somehow making some noise, but in a way that's a lot more powerful. Because what happened after that is that we had mentors coming forward. And of course, with the mentors, that's how you get started and create a mentoring program. But what happens from there is that it was not necessarily me going to knocking at every door and telling every leader, please listen to me, please listen, I've got a great idea, you need to listen to what I've got to say. But it was very much like people would talk about it. So there was like that network effect again. So people would be remembering that I talked about mentorship, remembering that this program got started in London. So they started taking some ownership. I do want to help, and so I'm going to come forward and sign up. So the whole process of getting Expedia to adopt the mentoring program was very much around going through the difficult road in a way. So instead of thinking again, I'm entitled to this, I've got the idea and I want to be the head of mentoring, it was very much like, let me show you how this is valuable to your business. Now, this is the gap, and here is how we're going to solve it. And all of these skills, I learned them along the way. Like, I've never done strategy before. I've never found myself building a product before. I knew about working in a global company and cultural differences, but there is so much that you find out, especially when your specialty is human beings. So how do they operate? How do they help one another? why is it easier in London than it is perhaps in Italy, where I'm from? So there is a lot to be discovered, and a lot of these skills I did not have at all when I started. And I didn't pretend to have them either. I learned them on the way. I asked people who knew more. I found mentors in the field. And one step at a time, I ended up talking and pitching my business case to the CEO, which was one of the biggest thing and most important moments of my career.
Amazing. And how did that go?
That was awesome. He's incredible, very smart person, and very understanding of what mentorship is to begin with and what makes people tick, and really has, I think, the success of the employees at heart. So that came across very much during that meeting. And yeah, he trusted me, I trusted him, and with time then this role was created, and that's how my job is there today, and making more Expedians happy every day.
Yeah, and I think, you know, what you've said there about, or what I've just picked up there actually is for you, there was taking the initiative and ownership of this, but also the courage to step up and facilitate what you did. So creating a platform for yourself, and this isn't about you, but this is about the business, and how can you share this message in an effective way, to get people to then be influenced and buy in to the concept.
Yeah, and there's people who ask me this question very, very often, which is, how could you ever email the CEO? Like, I would never do something like that. That is scary. What if something happens? What if I say the wrong thing? And it's really remembering that we are human beings, and so is this person. So yes, it's true. It's important to have a great communication style and understanding. You know, don't write like an essay to an executive. Perhaps be brief, and then get straight to the point. What are you trying to achieve? What do you need from me? Which are the usual questions that we should ask ourselves when writing emails, I suppose. But in general, it's really that step, that's something inside of you that tells you, yes, my idea is great, and I'm going to ask this person to listen to me. And if I get a no, I get a no. It means that it might not be the right time. So you need to take the risk there, and yeah, and really be brave. You said it right.
Yeah, completely. And this is the point here, I think, and particularly, you know, having recognized myself that from some research I did, that a lot of women in the workplace lack confidence, and that is the biggest thing that can hold us back from moving forward in our career. So, you know, yes, it takes courage and it takes strength to do so, but the question to then ask is, well, what's the worst that could happen? You may get a no, and it might only be a no for now, and you take that and you learn from it and think of, what can I do differently the next time, or you ask for more feedback. Yeah, very powerful stuff here. I think this is really important for people to recognize. So I appreciate you sharing this so openly. And the other thing you mentioned actually was about what I've written down as asking to learn. So a lot of these things you hadn't done before. So what did you do? You asked people, you figured it out, and that's okay. And the reason I highlight this is because even just recently, I had a conversation with a lady who had recently joined a company, remote working because of the global pandemic, and was finding it really hard to integrate, and didn't want to ask anything because of fear of being seen that they're not right for the job or whatever. And it's like, you started a new company, you started a new job, excuse me, why would anyone expect you to come in and know everything about everything? It's like, we do have these irrational thoughts that come up, and if we take a step back and look at them and think, well, I'm new to this company, or I'm new to this role, why would you not ask for help and not ask for guidance? Because actually that shows that you want to learn, that you're curious, and you want to grow, which is exactly what you've done in this scenario, right?
Yeah, it's the understanding that we're not perfect, pretty much. And it's something that I think we tend to do, not only women, but perhaps especially women. So like when I have to go on stage, when I went on stage, because I wanted to be there, for the Women in Tech event, I remember thinking, my presentation is not perfect, I need to rehearse more. And there's just so much you can do, and at some point you're just gonna have to let it go. So and it's the same for a lot of different things. Like, you're not gonna know everything. You might be an expert you're a fantastic data analyst, you might know absolutely anything about how to read and interpret data inside out, but chances are maybe your marketing skills are not as great. And when you need to then send out a communication to a hall of 2,000 people waiting for you to tell them about your knowledge, and it might not land as effectively as you want to. So you're not perfect. You're not an expert in everything, right? And that's where mentorship becomes important, because you don't need to be an expert. What you need is to understand how you can improve from the point where you are. And that's what a mentor helps you do. So together with being more confident, I couldn't recommend it more to have your own mentor by your side, have this person asking you the questions, and really say, like, I don't want to fail. I want to be perfect. And then the more you talk about it, the more you understand that's not the way it works.
Yeah, and I love that example you've given there about perfection, because what is perfection? You know, however perfect a presentation is, we will always find something to criticize about ourselves and our delivery, and we didn't say something we wanted to say. There is no perfect. And to your great example, it's about actually taking action and learning from it. That's the best way to learn, right? Is to do. So yeah, very much so. And tell me as well, when it comes to being able to create the impact that you did and to influence the people around you as you evolved in creating this role and getting the buy-in from people around you, how did relationships that you already had in place, how did your network within the business support or assist with that?
Yeah, absolutely. The first thing and the most important thing that you need when creating a mentoring program or creating a role like mine is you want to make sure that you allow people to understand what the benefits of this are, and also how they can help. So very similarly to when we said earlier, when you need to talk to an executive, what are the two things they need to know before they can come and help you? So mentors came forward when they understood that it was an opportunity for them to give back. It was an opportunity for them to contribute to their company culture, so their company mission, and a positive change that everyone wanted to see. So things like having this leader coming forward, so leaders will come first, just like leaders do, and everyone else following them from there. So this community was created by people sharing what was going on. Here is a screenshot of our Zoom meeting and our mentoring sessions that we had around Agile or around any other topic that's interest of them. And then more people would talk about it with their manager and feed it into their end of the year review and talk about how they found a mentor and then they're ready to move to the next role, or they realize that they want to move in another direction. So it's very much about really this network effect, the word of mouth between employees. Then you would, of course, utilize your tools like Slack or any community sort of channel that you have within the organization and make the best of it. Because what it does is it creates conversation around something incredibly positive and relevant for every employee, which is themselves. How do they progress? What are the blockers they're having? And another important thing that really makes this program grow is this safe space that you create allows people to see that they're not the only one with that issue, with that roadblock, and it makes a massive difference. It makes you feel better to know that you're not the only one thinking that perfection is everything, or that you want to be a subject matter expert, and perhaps you're not, and you feel like it's never enough. So yeah, really the community is what makes a big difference, and it's really volunteers meeting up with mentors over lunch, making sure that they keep track of their progress on Trello or any other tool that they use. So yeah.
And again, I like what you shared there, because I think it's highlighting getting your message out, but also building on your network, the communication around it, and it then just kind of flows, doesn't it, on the back of that. And then people become more aware. So it's building the awareness, which, yes, we're talking about mentoring as context here, but even from someone who wants to advance their career, these are things that are important to do, because you want to make yourself known, so that when that decision comes who do we promote, or who do we offer this opportunity to, who's going to get the bonus when there's always a limited pot in place, or the pay rise. You want to be top of mind, because it's not only your manager's responsibility, or the decision maker's responsibility to determine that. You need to influence that in some way. You need to help them along, because they have a lot of other responsibilities. They don't walk around thinking about you all the time. So, and how great you are and what great work you do. So you've got to take the initiative and the ownership around it to almost, it's self-promotion in a way, but making yourself known, so that when those decisions do come along, that you're the first person that comes to mind. So you're making the decision easy for them.
Yeah, and self-awareness as well. Like when you get rejected for a job that you really, really wanted, and you were almost 100% sure that you would have got the job, but you do not. Of course, the first reaction is like, whoa, that's awful. I'm a failure. I failed at this one. I thought I had it, but I don't. Well, an important thing to remember is, yes, let's grieve the moment, because it's, of course, something that touches our emotions, but also try and get the feedback from the recruiter or the employer or anyone that has been involved. And remember that you need that feedback, because you are very valuable and you put everything you had out there. And perhaps there are little things that could be tweaked for next time. So like that gesture of being like, yeah, thank you for letting me know. Can I please have your feedback on what I could do better next time? It sounds like a little thing, but it's not. And it's not only a best practice, it's really something you should be interested in. And it really helps you get some clarity and some closure in a way, and then moving on to the next role. So these are, very important.
Absolutely agree. Very, very good and well said there. So when we talk about mentoring, I know we've obviously touched on different areas and aspects of it. For our listeners, someone's thinking, actually, should I be getting a mentor, and how do I go about it? And why should I bother? Because maybe it's just more time consuming, and I'm busy enough. I've got loads going on. I haven't got time to have calls or meetings with mentors. What would you say to that? So in other words, why mentoring?
Okay, so mentoring should be part of your life. Like wherever you're at, if you are an executive or if you are a junior person that just joined the organization, it's their first job, or mentorship is really something that works end to end in your career. So the reason why this is extremely important is because you do need to have someone that's not your manager, that's not someone within your team, that can be there for you to explore options and think a little bit bigger than just what you have in front of you. So the best way to go about it is not to just walk around the office and ask people, hey, will you be my mentor? That's not advisable. I mean, if you feel like you want to do it, again, kudos to you. But the best way to go about asking for someone to be your mentor and finding one is to simply do some research around that person, understand what they're about. Look at their LinkedIn page, look them up wherever you can, really, like without going too far with the stalking part. But it's just for you to get an idea of what they're really doing, and then go listen to them if you have the opportunity to go, and I don't know if they're doing a presentation or an event or anything like that. But then ask them to get a 15 minutes coffee chat. Everyone has 15 minutes over lunch, over coffee, maybe at 8:45 before they start their day at 9 a.m., whatever you want it to be. But take that time to go and see if there is any chemistry between you and the person in front of you, because you might be going to the most amazing Fortune 500 CEO, and then they just might not be the right match for you. They're not in the right place to help you with your career. Perhaps they've been in their role for a long time and you're not quite there. So there is a lot of different reasons why a mentor might not be perfect for you. And then you might find yourself with someone that's perhaps is junior than you, that can mentor you on things that you have no idea. It could be a different identity, something that's completely out of your comfort zone. But the important thing is to remember that not everyone will be the perfect mentor for you. And so you shouldn't assume that because someone is great on stage, then it would be perfect for you. So go and investigate, go and have some FaceTime with them. 15 minutes are normally more than enough. And then you can get started from there and say, hey, are you accepting new mentees? Yes, I am. Great. So is it okay if I set up some time to you over lunch once every other Friday, or once a month if their schedule is really busy? I have worked with mentors from all levels, and none of them has told me, no, look, Veronica, no, I really don't have time for you. And like, oh, can we just meet like every 6 months? Or like, nobody does that. Everyone will find that time. And it's not because they are gracefully giving you their time, and so you should be feeling blessed. Do feel blessed, but the important thing is that there is something in it for the mentor too. It's a two-way street. And then people do it because it feels great. It feels good to help someone else, and it feels good to be listened to. And this works for the mentee as much as for the mentor. There's plenty of people, again, executive level and all, who would come to me and just say it's refreshing to, you hear your own thoughts and you find that someone is really, really listening to your message and doing something with it. So there is a lot of value in there.
Completely. And I love how you've outlined that. I think there is so much in it. And it's also understanding, to your point, why, how can it benefit me? And recognizing that, because that would be part of that conversation. Why have you approached me to be your mentor? How can I help you? So you want to be having some intention behind that conversation as well. And, you talked about, you've never had anyone say no. And to be fair, I've had situations where, so when I was back in my corporate role, I had formal mentors, but I also had what I called informal mentors. So we never actually had a formal official conversation say you're my mentor. But one person who comes to mind for me, he was one of my sales directors for a while, and very well respected, very, very intelligent, and had been around a while, so knew how things operate in the company. So somebody that informally I just reach out to, can I have a chat with you, rather than like a regular thing. So I might not speak to him for 6 months, but then I'd say, can we have a chat? And he was always so incredibly busy. So a lot of those conversations would happen in the evening. So it might be when we're both driving home from the office, or, once I'm at home and it's like even 8, 9 o'clock at night, because he worked long days. And therefore, as long as I was flexible and open to the fact he's still giving me his time, but it's got to be a little bit flexible to suit, his commitments, it worked. And it was an invaluable relationship. So I think it's being open as well to having that flexibility. If it's not a formal arrangement in an organization, for example, just be mindful of that. And you can still have a mentor that's almost, you just call upon when each of you want to check in or brainstorm something or get some advice.
Yes. And then one of the important things is that the mentor, what a formal mentoring program does, for example, in an organization, like the biggest power is the fact that it gives you the permission to ask. So to your point, your mentor might be busy, there are other things happening. So it's not really about the fact that you don't meet your mentor at 12 p.m. every Friday, but it's about the fact that you know that your mentor is there for you. So, if you have a terrible interview and you come out of it incredibly demotivated, you know that you can ask for another 10 minutes or whatever from them, and somehow they will fit you in their schedule. But it's really that thing that you're like, someone is there for me if I want to talk about this. And it's not necessarily, again, my manager or my colleague or my friends or my family. It's someone else, someone that's outside but still understands what I'm made of and why this hurts, for example.
Yeah, no, completely. So the message, the takeaway on this is get yourself a mentor if you haven't already done so.
Yes, very much.
Yeah. And then let's bring this on to creating a mentoring culture in an organization. So tell me a little bit about that, because there might be people listening here who are thinking this is a great idea and we'd love to incorporate something similar in our organizations. What are the sort of initial first steps to do so? So you've talked about how you created the role, but if we look now at the culture, so first of all, what does a mentoring culture look like in Expedia? So if you get a feel for that, what are the advantages of that mentoring culture for individuals, and then how do we go about creating it?
Absolutely. So mentoring fits in with your people team strategy. So it helps very much attracting talent, retaining talent, increasing engagement, and making sure that employees are happy within the organization. So this is pretty much what we're doing at Expedia, right? So we're doing our best to make sure that when people come in, they would be able to find a mentor right away, from the moment that they onboard all the way until they potentially leave. So it is really about this end-to-end process in which employees are taken through the journey, let's say. So another thing that's important to remember is the inclusion part. So Expedia we got an amazing inclusion team and great inclusion goals as well. So we're trying to make sure that, for example, representation for women and underrepresented identity and leadership positions are increased. So these are all like goals that your organization might be having around inclusion and how they want to make sure that it's a great place to work for everybody that's in it. So what mentorship does is making sure that these connections are made and they become valuable, as well as creating a safe space and creating psychological safety. So there are moments in which, let's say, I'm not going to talk for myself because I am part of the women group. There are topics that I'm comfortable talking about with a woman leader more than I am to a male leader, right? But when I do have those conversations with a male leader and I get him in a space in which we are talking about what's vulnerable and what really happens on the ground, like how I felt when I came back from maternity leave, despite that I haven't. But it's just an example to see how someone else might be feeling like this conversation needs to be had in a setting where I am prepared to listen to you. So having our senior leader joining, for example, reverse mentoring sessions, and really thinking about asking those questions that perhaps you always feel like you have to know because you're a leader and so you know it all, and it doesn't work that way. So those times where perhaps a person needs to leave work to pick up their kids, and how your bias got you to think, oh, she's doing it again, or oh, I cannot rely on this person, and things like that. So all those things, those thoughts that come to a person, and of course, there is a lot of self-education to be done there, but really understand what is really happening. Why don't I, as a male leader, perhaps understand as much, and I expect people to be operating at 100% all the time. So these are just like little examples of how a leader might find themselves in this vulnerable position to really understand better. And reverse mentoring does just that. It creates this space where the mentor and the mentee role are reversed. So instead of having normally like the most senior person in the room being the mentor, you have the mentee being the mentor in the room, and the mentee is normally from an underrepresented identity, and they will be able to really shed lights on what it's life as a woman at Expedia, what it's life in multiple identities, keeping into consideration intersectionality as well. So when you look at like the framework and what it does to the culture, it's pretty much making sure that the message gets to the leaders in a better package. So instead of being like, we want more women in leadership, we want this benefit and that benefit, and you need to listen to us, it's very much like sitting down and asking, why is this message not coming across? What do you really think is happening to moms coming back to work? Do you really think we have everything we need? And so tell me more. So there's like the sort of like approach in which the mentor in the room is, again, the more experienced in that specific topic, but can really help someone else being humble about it and understand more. So this is a little bit how these little tools like reverse mentoring and underrepresented identities, representation and focus and inclusion are really important. But really what you need to remember is that you are offering your employees an option that's made for them, and it's created for them from their actions. So it's not really, again, you're not giving them a training. You're not telling them like, that's amazing, we have a mentoring program, make sure you use it and see you later. It's very much like, how does this work for you? Have you tried this? Instead of career progression, perhaps career development or like skills development, maybe there is a gap there. So what does it mean for the individual? So it's, instead of being just like a tool that you roll out there and you expect the best you are very much relying on people taking actions to make it work, reaching out to mentors, enrolling to a certain course, and like really understanding what is available to them, because that's another interesting thing. A lot of the times we think that things are not available to them, to us. So we're thinking, hey, I cannot really apply for a job in product. I don't really know as much. So it's really that mindset shift in which you start thinking outside of just your team, outside of just your department, sometimes outside of your own organization, that there might be another realization that you have as a mentee. Perhaps working in travel is not your thing. Maybe you want to sell printers and things like that. So yeah, that's pretty much what it does.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, I'm hearing that I think every organization should have this because it just sounds phenomenal. And also it's a tailored program for individuals. As you said, it's not just roll out, here's a mentoring program, go get yourself a mentor, get yourself a mentee. It's actually then bringing together solutions, resources, training, and so forth to help people to move forward. So it's very supportive in the way you've developed it. Yeah, sort of definitely. I think, I mean, I'm sure you'd advocate the same, that all organizations should be looking at this.
Yeah, and it's community centered as well. So just like we said earlier, so you're not going to be coming in and like, okay, we're doing a speed mentoring session every Tuesday, then I'm giving you a mentoring platform and now you go figure it out. You listen to what your employees are looking to achieve. You try and match it with what your organization mission is. So there is so many ways in which, like, your people are your organization. That's how it works. And from an individual perspective, it's the same thing. You don't come to work in the morning because you're thinking, oh yeah, I'm gonna make sure to present my strategy and then I can go home and have dinner and all that. It's very much about like how fulfilling this is. Do I feel like I'm investing my 8 hours a day in the best I could? And if not, why? And moving from there, but never really just leaving because you have to. Just trying to make it work because it's your job, right? And it's your ambition, it's your daily emotions, it's people making you upset, it's people making you happy, there is people around you all the time. And that's a mentoring program works that way. It's just us, your mentor are your colleagues. They are safe people you can talk to, that you can trust. So yeah, it's really understanding that.
Yeah, completely. And you just mentioned several things and I didn't write them down to reflect back on them with you. So the one thing that stands out there is, yes, we are people centric as an organization. The company is the people, and we spend however many hours a week, a year, in our organization, whether we're working remotely now or we're going into the office. It's 30, 40, 50 hours a week with people. We want to make the best use of that time. It isn't just about turning up, getting a job done and going home again. It's like being intentional about it. And I think mentoring is a big part of that, to help you to be more intentional, to have direction, to I use the analogy of a satellite navigation system. You get in the car to go somewhere, where you're headed. When you're going to work, are you intentional about it? Do you know where you're headed or where you'd like to be? And are you taking the steps to get you there? Or are you simply just drifting day by day and getting a paycheck at the end of it? And for some people, that's okay. They're happy with that. So there's no right or wrong here. But if you are someone who wants to feel more fulfilled and to get more out of your career and what you do day to day and where you spend so much of your time, then you want to be intentional about it. You want to have a bit of direction. And the ideal way to help you with that is to get yourself a mentor. A question I have for you actually is, what would you say has been the biggest impact for Expedia of implementing this program? So let's say if there's maybe 1, 2, or 3 things.
What we're doing with Expedia, it's working very closely with inclusion and diversity. So I work in inclusion and diversity today. So when we're looking at the benefits that we are currently seeing is related to how our inclusion business group creating mentoring programs within their communities. So for example, our Latinx community, who has been incredibly engaged with our mentoring program, they've been using our platform to then create conversations around specific topics that are relevant to them. So there is this sort of like opportunity for them to utilize the main Expedia platform to tailor make it to their needs for their community. So there's a lot of interesting conversations happening, a lot of space for them to have this chat among themselves or together with other inclusion business group and with our leaders, of course, who are there to listen and to take actions. Then the second part is, again, taking actions. So yeah, so we have our leaders really really digging deep into what our underrepresented entities life is like. And we've been having them talking about not only their experience, so being more vulnerable in a way to their audience and really showing themselves as human, which is a very important thing. Then for the rest, we've been seeing that employees who join a mentoring program are 3 times more likely to get to progress in their career and to stay within the business. So we're seeing a fantastic attrition rate from that perspective, like retention rate, and as well as progression. So employees are more engaged. They're more they're basically engaged in their job or in progressing in their next step without necessarily having to have their manager going there and tell them what's next. But they take the initiative, right? And they understand what their path is and where they want to get. And these are really important, right? Like, we do want to retain our employees, our talent, that we invest so much in it. And mentorship does that. It really has an impact on your HR figures.
Completely. And these are huge. I think the last one in particular, retention, the cost of hiring new people, the time invested in it is huge. So being able to reduce your attrition, retain people, but also then them taking ownership for their career progression, because it's always great to have people who understand the business, who are very loyal to it, have been around a long time, to then progress through the ranks and be able to bring that value rather than just take it elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So that's huge. And creating community and obviously taking action is a big one. That's always very, very important. So tell me, when it comes to, let's say, job seeking, how do you find your ideal employer? Because you talk a lot about Expedia and it sounds like an amazing place to work. So what do you look for? What can somebody look for, and how do you know when it's the right place for you?
Mm-hmm. So for the career path that I've been having in the past few years, I frankly don't remember the last time I really had an interview. And the reason is not because I haven't had any. I did, because I progressed. Last time was 6 months ago, and before that it was 2 years before. But it's because I found myself in a position where what I'm explaining, it's my value and why I am passionate about what I'm doing. So instead of being a moment in which I show up and to an interview and talk about, okay, here are my weaknesses and here are my strengths and here's where I want to be in 5 years, I find myself telling them about what is the value of really building something like this mentoring program that I've been working on. And at the same time, understanding, how does this fit in the company that I'm interviewing for, and their strategy and this person thinking and this person understanding of my project, myself. And it becomes, again, a two-way street. So you start, I think your mindset shifts towards, we're both in here to gain value out of this. So for this reason, I have as much value as, I don't know, what you would like me to achieve in this role, right? So it's not necessary, I don't have to impress you. Yes, of course you do want to do that, you want to get the job, that's important. But you find yourself very much understanding that the culture fits within what I'm looking for. Does this person understand, again, me and my purpose? So when you look for an employer or you go to an interview, it's really important to, again, do your homework, understand what they're about, and see how the conversation flows. So don't go in with the expectation that really is the perfect job, being from your dream company or anyone else, but really like how easy it is for this person to understand what I'm about and how passionate I am about the things that I do. So that's a big thing for me. And it's the reason why I haven't interviewed in a while, because the conversations that I have are about the value that I bring by doing what I'm best at doing. Yeah, so pretty much this is my experience, and I'd like everybody to try and do this sometimes. Try and get into an interview without thinking, yeah, now today I'm just gonna be really nervous because I hate interviews, and that there's just I hate being fake about the way I am. Try be true about the way you are. Try allowing the other person to see through you and why things are important without necessarily having to go into details. Of course, stay relevant within the question that you're being asked, but try and be you. Try and be you in an interview, which is a place where it seems like nobody want to be, but it makes a big difference.
Absolutely. Yeah, completely. You know, authenticity is key here, and it's showing up as you, the best version of you, as I always say, and making it a conversation. And I've said this for years, that interviews are conversations, a two-way chat, because ultimately, you know, I think often the approach is I'm going to an interview to answer loads of questions and to prove myself and sell myself, which, yes, there is a part of that. As you said, you want to share the value that you can bring to the organization, to the role, and so forth. But at the same time, you're assessing the company to decide if it's right for you. And that's the thing that's so important that people often forget. Coming back to my question to you about how do you know it's the right one, is being able to have that, because if you're not given that opportunity and it's then turned around into a simple one-sided Q&A, then perhaps it isn't the right place for you. You want to be in an environment where you have the opportunity to be able to speak up, and that starts from the interview, where, you know, the interviewer is open to having a two-way dialogue, and for you to ask them questions as well, so you can make that informed decision of, do I want to take this forward? Is this the right place for me? Does it feel like a good fit?
Yeah, and understanding I think your nerves as well, in a way. Like think about public speaking. I think I compare public speaking to an interview many times, because what happens is that you're really putting a lot of effort in making sure your mind is engaged and you are really doing your best, but your body will betray you somehow, right? So you start sweating when you go on stage, you start like stammering a little bit, so something is like your body will react. You know that when you're on stage you need to wait a few minutes for your body to chill for a moment, right? So when you go to an interview, don't just expect to smash it. Just take your time. Like, you know that it's a bit weird. Someone is testing you. Yes, there is an element of testing in there, but try and go with the state of mind of what's the worst that can happen. Of course, always think about that, because again, like, you don't get the job, on to the next one, right? Yes, it could be maybe if you really want that job from that organization, it might be again down the line, maybe in a few months or whatever policy they have. But really think about being authentic, just like you said earlier, and being kind to yourself at the end of the day, because you need to let it be, again, let go of perfectionism, which is very important, and accept that yes, failure it can happen, and again, you are there to impress them as much as they're there to impress you. So
yeah, very well said, Veronica. I'd like to thank you so very much for speaking with me today. This has, you know, you've shared a wealth of invaluable information here that can help everybody at whatever stage of their career they're at, and particularly those thinking about getting a mentor, being a mentor, creating a mentoring culture. So thank you so very much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you for having me, Lila.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, then please do subscribe to the show so you don't miss any future episodes. And remember to leave a review telling us about your key learnings and what you enjoyed the most. And do share this podcast with your friends and colleagues so we can spread the word on the importance of personal branding when it comes to your career advancement. And also ensure that others can benefit from these invaluable insights from many inspirational leaders. I will be eternally grateful. And if you are looking to earn more money, to get promoted, to secure your next role and advance your career, and would like me to support you personally on that journey to get you there, then reach out to me and let's arrange a chat. Alternatively, why don't you check out my personal branding launchpad, a group training and mentoring program. Finally, if you'd like to connect with me directly, then do reach out and direct message me on LinkedIn. You can find the link as well as any other resources mentioned in the show notes. I'll see you next time.